I love about sacred. Stepping up when it can, with or without the resources, just in those major moments, and keeps doing it. So I'm going to quick check my email. Norma, maybe you'll want to, we're kind of pre-minutes here, but introduce yourself. I know this is the first time you're with us today. Where did she go?
And thank you, Wen. Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Norma Koshbin, and I'm a Baha'i of the Baha'i faith. I wanted to say real quickly that we hosted a global series of conferences exploring the oneness of humanity and the universal call to work for the betterment of society. And I know that's why we're all together here. We had our conference May 21st at the Oblate Center, beautiful grounds, wonderful event. It was a 2-day event. We had over 125 people there, and we invited our family, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, bringing together basically like-minded folks. We call them well-wishers of humanity, so that we could consult together and discuss topics. And it's basically community building at the grassroots level. And what we
somehow or other, we lost her in there. So sorry about that, Norma. It's 8 o'clock. We're doing some just pre-conversations, but I'm glad Norma's with us. And I think we have some other folks who are new with us as well. So it's good to see all of you at the intersection this morning. I'm also kind of watching my phone for our guest who's coming. Maybe this has never happened to any of us, right? Maybe they're having difficulty getting into the Zoom room. So I want to make sure we stay on top of that. But it's good to see you here. We'll take a little time for announcements. I ask that if you're not speaking, if you would please mute your microphones. That will really help, I think, in the listening of things. So we've had another week of tragedy. And I hope that you all know about tonight's memorial mass at the cathedral, and maybe some of you participated with the vigil on Tuesday night, and there was a rally last night. And so maybe some of you participated in those ways. And I see that Kara is with us, so this is good. One of the things that I reflected on this week that I haven't seen before in this totality in our community is how quickly kind of the different aspects came into being on their own. So in other words, what I'm saying is there was a vigil, right, on Tuesday night that was more or less put together by the folks and others, but more or less put together by the folks in our community that provide direct services and care to those who are migrating through our area. And then last night, the rally was planned more or less by folks who work on advocacy, right? And tonight, more or less, it was planned by the Archdiocese and some interfaith, but I've not seen those, and lots of overlap, right? And connectedness and other folks, but that's kind of, when we've been in similar situations, I've not seen kind of that full spectrum coming together in that way before. And I think that's really important that we're doing that. It's important to the collective healing process to come together as community. It's important to, any movement afoot in terms of compassion into the world and into our city. So um, I appreciated seeing that, and hope maybe some of you will join in tonight. That's at 7 o'clock at the cathedral. If you haven't been downtown in a while, there is a lot of construction. So you'll want to head out earlier than you normally think you would. And don't trust that you'll come sliding in okie dokie, because it's just a lot. Probably the closest parking that I know of and most reasonable is at City Tower, which was the previous Frost Bank building, which is down the street. So I could recommend that. And there should be at 7 o'clock tonight, plenty of parking in there. It's now the City Tower, and a lot of the city's administrative offices are in there. Dr. Kara, I see that you're here. I'm going to take another, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to take one more minute. Oh, Wendy raised her hand. Wendy, one more minute for an announcement. Wendy, did you want to say something?
Yes, with regard to the memorial mass tonight, Archbishop Gustavo has invited faith leaders of all traditions who are available to come between 6:15 and 6:30 to organize into a procession of carrying candles. What we're looking for is a total of 53, and last count we're up to 41 faith leaders who will be participating in this way. So if you're available and willing, we have a spot for you. And again, to meet at the main doors of the cathedral between 6:15 and 6:30 to receive candle and instructions for being part of the procession at 7. And you're welcome to reach out to me on chat or just show up. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Appreciate that. So we're at 8:06, and Kara, I hope you were able to open your screen so everybody can see your beautiful face. But if you're not, that's...
No, can you guys see me?
Oh, I can see you now. I can see you now.
As the world will have it, my computer this morning decided to just be a black screen. So my sincerest apologies. I'm working.
I know it happens. So I want to introduce everyone to Dr. Kara Allen. And she is new to San Antonio. When did you move here, Kara? Remind me.
When did I move or where?
When?
So I moved here December 20th.
Yeah. So pretty new to San Antonio, December 20th. And it's just good to have you. You know, that's the weirdest weather this year. So don't necessarily take this as normal, but we'll talk about global warming another time, right? So we're going to get right into this, Kara, because this is a tight briefing. We do this every Thursday morning, even for those who are new to hear this. This convening came about through the mayor right after COVID began. And most of our briefing, of course, initially was on COVID, because what did any of us know, right? And so we were all learning as quickly as possible, connecting between faith and community leaders and civic leaders, and all learning and working together. And we've been doing that every week since April 2020, except on Thanksgiving. So we've taken both Thanksgiving days off. So it's good to have you with us. You are the first chief impact officer for the Spurs. It reminds me of when this initiative began. I was the first faith liaison for the city. We didn't have that before. And what did that mean? So my first question to you is, how did this come about? Why did the Spurs decide they needed someone like you?
That's a good question. And one I'll say before I get started, it's an honor to be in space with you all. First, it's an honor to just be in San Antonio. And the quickest history is to San Antonio, which feels quicker like home than anywhere else I've ever lived, but by way of Indianapolis, where I was born, Oakland, where I was a teacher, Boston, where I was a nonprofit leader, LA, Los Angeles, where I both got my master's in social work and my doctorate in educational leadership for social justice, and where I was doing a lot of work with nonprofits, and then also where I became a foster parent. And then back to Chicago, where I was getting closer to my siblings and my mother and father who were in Indianapolis. And now down here to San Antonio, with a few stints, by the way, in Uganda and Haiti. It's also an honor to be here as the mother to a 29-year-old who last saw her biological mother at the border near San Antonio, and who is now in her third year of medical school after 26 foster homes. And so I share that to tell you the complexity of the world is ways in which home comes back to us is very real as well. So before I took this job with the Spurs, Maria and I did a little sort of reuniting with San Antonio, a quiet trip back here for her to make sure she felt safe and comfortable again in a place that had a harder history in her brain and in her heart. And with her blessing, I accepted the role with the Spurs, and I'm excited to claim home for many, many years to come, or also because my 9-year-old is not going to tolerate more moves, but is really loving home here as well. The Spurs created this role, I believe, and I feel convicted in sharing. As you all, I think, know, showing up for community and showing up alongside community has always been something that's core for how the Spurs show up in community, or in San Antonio, rather. And as our CEO, and our leadership team looked at what are our priorities, rather, for the next couple years, which we called our vision for 2025. We talked about 3 things. What does it mean to have championship teams? What does it mean to ensure financial strength for the foreseeable future? And what does it mean to commit to this community and societal impact? And as we talked about that third piece, that was the one piece of this kind of story or the narrative of the organization and our work that didn't have a seat at the table, I will say, right? So in theory, it was deeply important to us, but in practice, at all of our leadership team meetings, there was not an impact lens with which we applied to the decisions that we made. And so it meant more than asking, like, is this decision values aligned? And it then meant, it then meant beyond values alignment, not in absence of values alignment, but beyond values alignment. How does the decision we're making impact the communities we're here to serve beyond a basketball court? And by serve, I often mean walk alongside, right? Our job is to walk alongside. We believe the communities have what they need, and our responsibility is both listen to them, amplify what they're sharing with us, and when we are uniquely able to do so, provide either resources, support, amplification, unification to get them what they need, or to get them more of what is helping them be successful now. And so what that means now is, in practice, in all of our leadership team meetings, that question is getting asked. Okay, well, when we make this decision, how is it impacting community? And then we could dig deeper. Who do we mean, and what do we mean when we say community? And most often we mean those who are least at the center, right? So I'll be a nerd for just a second, but if we apply sort of a targeted centrism model, targeted universalism model, then we have to ask ourselves, all right, who is least centered right now? And thus, who can we be of most service to, or who are we unintentionally most harming, and how do we need to ask them or rethink our decision? That's a long answer.
No, it's a good answer. In fact, it leads me to another question, because a lot of what you're talking about also goes along with the skill sets and practices of compassion. I don't know if you're aware, but San Antonio is officially a compassionate city with about 450 other cities on the planet. And so I'm just kind of curious with everything you've said, is the word compassion ever utilized in those conversations? How do you see that linkage?
They are inextricably linked, is the easy answer.
Mhm.
The longer answer is maybe both personal. It's a Thursday morning, we can be a little personal. I feel like I know y'all and I'm deeply grateful for this space. It is both deeply personal to center compassion and very much a focus of the organization's future. I will say I bring a different level of sort of that dialogue around compassion than I believe most NBA teams have. I just got back from our NBA People and Inclusion Summit, and we had a really funny conversation around a charming conversation around empathy and compassion and these words and why they mean so much to me and how they show up. And, like I said, we have to budget with compassion. And they're like, what are you talking about? But I believe fiercely in compassion. I will share part of the reason compassion, I smile so big when I hear compassion, is I wake up every morning rooted in compassion first, right? Like our responsibility as humans is to take care of one another and get each other what we need. And that's it, right? Like we can complicate that when we do as humans, successfully complicate that in a lot of ways. But if we strip back the things that make us oftentimes different or divisive, I do believe we can most often unify on how do we get each other what we need and how do we take care of each other.
Mhm.
And that's super. I mean, I donated a kidney to a stranger last year and had lots of long conversations about with my parents even, right? Like I'm a grown adult and still very much like, Carol, how would you do that? And there is no other way for me. Like if I have two of something that work, then one goes to somebody who needs it. That's it. But that's not a compassion I expect others to live by. I won't champion anybody else and the expectations I give for them. However, I will consistently model that that's the way that we'll show up in community, and we'll acknowledge when we don't.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we haven't always been successful. So
Mhm. It's interesting. You might not know this, but in that resolution to be a compassionate city, resolutions are written with whereas, and then it's be it resolved, solution, etc. But one of the whereases, which I contributed to, but notes that the Spurs are the compassionate NBA team. And the Spurs should know that they're in that resolution. The other thing about the intersection, and this is like an intersection of leaders, as I said before, faith, community, civic leaders working together at that intersection. But we also share a lot of, knowledge and things that might help each other that we might not know about. I don't know if you know about the Equity Atlas with the city, but I point you there because of a lot of what you've already talked about. The folks who aren't at center or at the margins are the most vulnerable. And the city utilizes an equity budget. So it's based on that Equity Atlas. So if you didn't know about it, the Spurs might want to use that as well.
I do know it.
Good. Good to hear that. I want to check the time real quick. I don't want to run out all of a sudden. Oh, good. We're really good. I'm curious if there's been anything since you've been here, and this could be about the Spurs or anything else, but anything that has surprised you. Like, what? Did you ever have you had any what moments since you've been here? Like, what are you talking about?
Let's see. I'm gonna go with some what's. The commitment to breakfast tacos is real. The realist what? The heat is a what? I did the kidney comment earlier. My body temperature has gone down like 9 degrees. Thank goodness, because I am now like perfectly equipped for San Antonio summers, but this is some real heat. You all welcome with open arms, it feels. But I will say the realest what for me is the spirit of the city. It is this incredibly resilient, but like it's a beautiful grit. It's not a hard edge, like painful grit. It's a compassionate grit that folks really do collectively take care of each other. I don't understand how everybody knows everybody. It's magnificent, but truly I feel like the city folks just know each other. And I think I even just said, like, I feel like we're friends here. It just is, there's a way in which you all move together that I admire so much. That doesn't mean you all and we all agree, but it means that we move together in the spirit of figuring out how we stay walking alongside together. And that's a hard commitment. It's like the same as when you talk about collaboration. Collaboration's hard. In general, people reduce the idea of collaboration to sit at the table together. So if you sit at the table together, we can check the box and say we collaborated. That is not how San Antonio collaborates. Sitting at the table together is that's the baseline. That's what you do. What comes after that is all the ways that the what has been so real. Like you heard all the cities in America and beyond that I've lived, and I have loved so many cities and communities, and I'm honored to walk in them. I have never seen a community like San Antonio in the way you all move together and know each other, and that's really beautiful.
It is a beautiful thing. For many of us, it's what we love about the place. And not so much the heat. Anyway, because it is on. What I'd like to do is encourage people who are listening a couple things. One, not to be afraid to ask questions, and that could be put in chat, but we're going to go into a question time. I'm wondering, Kara, if you might have a few more minutes. It's 8:20, but even if you might have a few more minutes past 8:30. But you can tell us if you don't, that's just fine. But we might have some questions. Oh, there's some stuff popping up. What I'd like to do too with those who are watching, if you would, in the chat, and then we'll save it and send it to Kara, to put your name and what congregation, organization, university, whatever you're connected to, and your email, and we can save that chat, Kara, so that you have all these contacts. So one day, if you go, oh, I really wish, you could maybe look down that list and you might find somebody who's connected with whatever that might be.
Can I ask something else?
Yeah.
So if you are willing and interested and able, two other things that would be really helpful for me, and I recognize the request is real. One, anything that you want me to know about you, your work, your congregation, your space, your community. But then two, if you were to say right now, this is what I need that you have, this is what I need that you can give. Like there are just so many ways in which we can show up for you, we as collectively the Spurs, that I don't know until somebody shares, that I would love to learn more. And even if it's at like, Kara, I need to have coffee with you, I'm in. I am very good at buying tea. I'm good at buying coffee, I suppose too, but I'd love to be able to do so. But it can be, name it and let me know, and you will hear back from me. To your question around, do I have more time? I do until about 8:40. Is important to note somehow, I have also been given, I am now in charge of all of our HR. So I'm our chief people officer as well. And I am averaging about 71 meetings a week right now. So it's not a long-term sustainable plan, but unfortunately I do have to run at 8:40 to get to a 9 o'clock meeting, but I'm here until that very moment.
Okay. I'm just going to open it up. If folks would just raise their hand. There's Nadia raising her hand. Nadia.
Good morning, Kara. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Nadia Mavrakis. I'm the CEO of nonprofit Culturingua that focuses on elevating the people and heritage of the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. I wanted to ask about the Spurs' involvement in corporate partners for racial equity, and if you just in general could give an update on what's going on with corporate partners for racial equity, but then I'm also specifically interested in the economic opportunity aspect of CPRE's focus and providing capital to small business owners, people of color, and other workforce development opportunities. And can you just speak to sort of what's going on in that realm?
Yeah, absolutely. CPRE the work continues, and the initiative that has just been launched is in the initiative I would have spoken about is what you just shared. So we launched the non-dilutive capital fund, and I've accepted applications for it. The application process did close. However, if I'm hearing you say that you are interested, you please drop it in the chat and I will make sure to get the information over to you, and we will figure out what we can do to make that happen, because the goal is not to shut people out of opportunity, but ensure that we bring people into opportunity. So as you think of the three pillars that the CPRE is focused on, the work that the economic opportunity work is the work that just launched. The next piece of the puzzle is the next phase of the safety and justice work, specifically focusing on alternatives to incarceration, and then figuring out what are the ways in which we can invest in local communities or local organizations who are doing that work on behalf of communities. I have all of your email addresses. We just sent out a CPRE update to stakeholders. And so if you all do drop in your email, I will also just forward that update to everybody so you can see what happens. And if you'd like to be involved in updates in the future, you may get those as well. So that's the work happening.
Thank you.
Kara.
Yeah.
And here's Beverly Watts Davis. I didn't expect you to raise your hand today, Beverly.
Oh, she's
I'm being
grand
facetious. I'm being facetious, totally.
Hi,
Go.
good morning, Miss Allen. It is so good to see you. And I have to say thanks and thanks and thanks. You all, Miss Allen has been a phenomenal partner with West Carolina Austin Community Center. Thank you so very much with our NBA Foundation grant. And it has just been leveraged. And I received something from Shamika yesterday or last night, and that really talked about your big back to school event. And what I love that you're doing, Kara, is that you're asking everybody to come together, because everybody comes to you to help, give us 10, so much money to help with the back to school. So you got 38 people, 38 organizations asking you for this. But I love the fact that Shamika said, can you come together? That's exactly what we did with the Summer Extravaganza. We have 27 partners. We had so many people coming to us, asking us for many grants or many funding to help with their summer programs. And we said, why don't we just bring everybody together? That way, all the kids will be able to do everything. One group would take them horseback riding, feed them, and they go home. Another group would do sports, they'd feed them, they go home. Someone else take them to the zoo, feed them, go home. And so I said, why don't we all come together so the kids can not only go to horseback riding, but they can also go to sports, and they can also go to the zoo, and they can also do these things. So it has turned out to be really wonderful experience for the young people. And you guys have been wonderful to work with us on that. So just thank you. And thank you for what you did for Black History Month. That was really, really, really awesome. We so appreciate it.
Of course, it's our honor. And just for folks who are listening, one of what I believe is a resource that we have is the ability to bring folks together, right? We can do that on the basketball court, but we do that all the time, both in space and right, because the facilities that we have, but also in mission and commitment. And so we know we get so many requests of back to school events and celebrations. And so it figures like, why don't we use the space that we have to allow folks to distribute what they want to share, and also sort of like condense all the different opportunities that are happening across the city so that everybody can come to one location. We provide the location without cost, of course. We provide the amplification because we can do that really well. And then we can unite resources. Everybody's better together, right? Like at all costs, whenever we can move together, we're going to do so. I think you all hopefully you saw that we launched the Sport for Healing Fund. Spent a lot of time with our neighbors in Uvalde over the last month or so, and speak with families daily, and adore and love that many of them. And what we learned is that the Sport for Healing Fund was most necessary. So instead of just launching that alone, we met with our neighbors here in this state. So the Rockets and the Mavs and the Dallas Stars, and then the NBA as well. And then what will come out next is we've got an additional, Dr. Castillo, that's right. At all costs, collective impact is the dream for me. Collective impact, trust-based, place-based philanthropy, that's how we do the work. But the Sport for Healing Fund is another good model of, it is not about us. I don't need our name anywhere, except for if it amplifies other people's work. Otherwise, we're going to go do great work for community alongside each other.
Thank
Keep
you.
working, makes the dream work.
Yeah. Dave, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to remind everyone that there are several San Antonio Stephen Ministry congregations around town to help all the grieving from the loss of DeJounte Murray. So if anybody needs any sort of ear to talk to, we're there for you.
Great. Listen, hard decisions all over the board. I hear you. Thank you for offering your support. And I will also say the organization is in rebuild across all areas, walks, and making hard decisions and adoring people wherever they go next is part of how we do the work. So we'll keep doing it. With that being said, I do have to say, we're here in San Antonio. I feel like I usually start speeches with that. Folks get a little bit anxious and some headlines before. We're not leaving. We're right here. San Antonio's home. It will always be home.
Oh yeah, we love our Spurs.
I know.
Beverly, do you have another question or is your hand still up? It's just still up. Any other questions or thoughts? I have one more, but I want to make sure. So Kara, since you've been here, has there been a particular effort of support of community impact, right, that has happened since you've arrived that you're particularly proud of, you know, that you're glad that you did that? That might have been a reach even.
Well,
A 3-pointer.
that's fair. I will share this because it's the stuff that's never going to go headlines and is really important to hear.
Mhm.
It's a safe space here, but last Saturday we hosted 9 girls and their families at the practice facility in San Antonio with David Robinson and the crew and many of our players, and no media, and have raised about $700,000 for those families alone, because that is the Tree City Spurs girls basketball team from Uvalde, and 2 of their players were lost in the shooting, and one of their players is in the hospital here in San Antonio, and we have had team, both on court and off court team members visiting with them since right after the incident. And so I share that because I'm not joking when I say, like, I care about the headline only and if it serves the organizations and the communities that we walk alongside. But those young people desperately deserved joy and space to connect. And I will tell you, right, the social worker in me, one of the 2 of the girls' families who were lost both came as well. Huge Spurs fans. And one of the mothers of one of the daughters who was lost hugged me when we got there, and she said, "Miss Kara, help me find my son," and her son standing right in front of her. And I said, "We're here, like, we got this." And I just hugged her, and she's like, "Help me find my son. I think he left when my daughter did." And they're playing on the basketball court and coyotes running around, and they're doing the silly Whataburger fry toss and like having the time of their lives. And she comes over and she's like, "He's back." And tears are just rolling down her face. And listen, like, we can do a lot of really big things for the city, but at the end of the day, we have to be able to do the one-to-one. We have to be able to ensure that each individual receives the love, the care, the compassion that we can provide. Because if we're not about building leaders and legacies with one individual, then all the big events that we do, actually, they just don't hit the same because it feels shallow. And so we got to do both at all costs. And this was that. So I will say I'm certainly really excited about both the things that we've launched and the plans for the future. But I'm also deeply committed to the one-to-one that we'll forever do without most folks ever knowing.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to take just a brief pause. Those who already maybe left because it was 8:30 and our commitment to that, but those who might still need to leave a little bit early, thank you for being with us today. We have at least one other question yet for Dr. Kara. But thank you for being here. Next week, we've been looking at all of the collaboratives within Compassionate San Antonio, one each week this summer. And next week, we're going to be hearing about the mental health collaborative, but specifically Bridges to Care San Antonio. So hope to see you next week for those who might need to leave. So there was a physical hand up that I missed because her hand icon isn't working. And so I'm going to call on Meg Garcia. Meg.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Dr. Kara. It's been lovely to hear your personal and professional stories that you shared, and we are so glad that you are here in San Antonio with us. I am representing Northwest Vista College, and we have exciting news that the Peace Center, after 27 years, is coming to college. So the San Antonio Peace Center will now live and grow and continue to cultivate and nurture that one-on-one connection that you're talking about. So we have a lot of exciting work. So my question is about, I'm in an educational institution. So how do you see, or what do you see the role of compassion, in your organization? How do you see that growing within our various institutions? I mean, all educational institutions, but specifically I'm speaking about the institutions of higher education and the community colleges.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's twofold, which is to say, one, I would love to learn more about the Peace Center and the work that y'all are doing. And two, I often resist answering questions like that, not as a stopgap, but rather because I don't believe it's my job to tell you what you need that we can give. Rather, I'm going to say to you, Ms. Garcia, like, how do you see us? And what do you need that we have? And how can we help you get you what you need? I deeply believe, and I'll sort of overview of this, as we think about impact. We think about impact through the lens of building leaders and legacies where we live, learn, work, and play. The work that we do is focused in those 4 areas. And when folks come to us with work that doesn't align to one of those sort of like pillars, the answer is going to always be no and. No, because my job is to be really clear with people when we cannot do what they need. Because the worst thing I can do is overpromise and underdeliver. And is always going to be, we have a remarkable opportunity to amplify and unite in ways that not everybody in the city has access to. So my responsibility then is always to do the and. So the next phase of that, right, is to listen, to hear what you all are working through and what your goals for the future are. I am always comfortable with the responsive moment, right? The Spurs, Tree City Spurs Fund, certainly like not part of my plan. It is a responsive act that we must take, that we're responsible as humans to take. But I am much more interested in outside of the responsive things that we must do, building legacies over time. That means that, listen, like we might not see a whole lot of progress on a commitment we make now for higher education next year. That's the hard work. What does it mean to stay at the table and commit for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, for the next generation? That's the stuff that like we actually have real power in being able to commit to. It's less for what it's worth. It's less sexy work. it's more necessary work. And that's the stuff that I want to listen and hear what your sort of 10, 15-year plan is. And then what does it mean for us to walk alongside you there? Does that help?
That was lovely. Thank you.
So we're at 8:38, and I'm not going to take another question because you know how we can that will be our 2 minutes. And I want to honor Kara's time, but I am going to ask everyone to open up their mics. We're going to do this together, so you might as well open up your mic. We won't be able to tell your voice, right? And repeat after me. Ready? Go Spurs, go.
Go,
Spurs, go.
Go
Repeat it
Spurs,
again.
go.
Another one.
Go, Spurs,
Kara,
go.
go.
Go,
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 Kara,
Kara,
go.
Go, Kara. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you.
Thank you for
An
being with
honor.
us, and you're welcome to be with us or send somebody every week from the Spurs, because we learn as a community here and how we can move together. So thank you, Kara. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you're part of our planet now, and just so glad you're here. Thanks for spending your morning with us.
I'm deeply honored. Thank you all for doing the work all the time. I look forward to meeting you all in the near future.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to try to remember here to save chat because I said I would do that. And I'm not very good, as some of you know, to remember these things. Look at that.
Oh, and I want to be able
Yeah.
to say thank you so much. You sent the things from the Conference of Mayor.
Yes.
They were so inspiring. Thank you so very much.
Oh, I'm so glad you listened to
Oh,
those.
They were, yes. Yes, I did.
And the
Uplifting.
both the woman from HUD as well as Dr. Murthy, the Surgeon General. But I don't know, those words, we're going to keep talking, I guess. Those words, what is her name with HUD? It's a very interesting last name.
Oh, shoot.
Fudge? No. What's
No.
it? Is it? No, it's something really interesting, her last name.
Hold on, I'll find out just real quick.
Yeah. But she was really strong in her presentation to the US Conference of Mayors in saying, mayors, you need to quickly commit or spend your ARPA dollars.
Yes.
Because Congress is already in process of pulling back the unspent dollars. She said that as clear. I mean, she was like, are you listening?
No, you're right. It's Marcia Fudge.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting last name. So, and I get concerned about it because she was not holding back. She was telling us something clear. And she made it sound like, and when it happens, it's going to be so sorry. Yeah, you put all that effort in, but you didn't make any decisions. So,
and what she wasn't, and what she, I was listening to what she said, but also what she wasn't saying. She didn't come out and say it, but she said this money's going to be gone, and that was an indication. Look, midterms are coming up. This Congress may totally change their mind, and that's what she didn't say. But I think all the mayors got it.
Yep.
But different Congress.
Yeah, and so anybody who's out there connected to anything that's out there that's looking at that ARPA funding in any way out there, I can't encourage you enough, to do your part and to do it quickly, clearly, and to be ready. Because, there's not going to be this. It was so great to hear Kara say this morning to Nadia, right? She said, if you're still interested, she said to Nadia, well, that's not going to happen, I don't think, with ARPA funding. If we're not all in our game, when the game opens up, we're just going to miss it. And it could be for the whole, I hope it doesn't happen. I really hope. I saw this morning that the arts funding RFP opened for ARPA dollars. It's not as much money. It's like $1 million something, but for artists and, things like that. But I saw that this morning. But I do know that the ARPA dollars for mental health. That's still trying to figure it out. There's another one of those listening sessions that we had a week ago today, but more in the community, that's on July 9th at the Senior Center, W.W. White. It's in District 2. I think it's like at 10 to 11:30. But I also sent out, there's like a QR code. I sent that out to everybody at the intersection that I think you can go to and give your input through the QR code. And so the more community that puts into that, the better. I'm giving you the best advice I got, right? Just short of writing the stuff for you, which I can't do. So any other last minute thought at 8:44 for the good of the world? Thank you all. Oh, Anne,
Oh,
yes.
just a real quick one. I just started the Charter for Compassion's compassionate listening course. It's intensive. It's 2 hours every Wednesday for 4 weeks, and just started yesterday. And it was amazing. I'm very excited about the 4 sessions, and I would be interested in knowing like how can I bring that information to the community. Like I haven't taken the full course yet, but like I'm trying to think of how I can make this super useful. You know what I mean? Sort of. So anyway, I'll be thinking about that.
Yeah, it might be something that we could offer, like to everyone here who would want to participate, but it also could be a follow-up offering to say folks who've gone through the Compassion Institute but let's keep talking about that and how you see, you're a teacher, which is advantageous. So,
right.
How will that be integrated? So let's keep talking about that. If anybody has any ideas for Anne as well, let her know. The other AH on this screen. So
yes, or if you want information on the class so that you can see what it's about, so that we can collaborate, I can send that to you.
All right. Thanks, Anne. I think it's probably about 8:46. Thank you all for being with us. Again, next week it's mental health, bridges to care, NAMI. So doing great work, and it's really been moving. So talk to you soon. Have great weekends.